Thank you everyone for joining us today. And today we're going to be talking about evaluation of foreign qualifications. So thank you again for being here with us. Okay. So a little bit about us. We'd like to introduce ourselves mainly to, so that you can get to know us and you can get to know our contact info and everything else. But we also wanted to talk a little bit about our background and why we are so passionate about adult education. So for example, my name is Ana Mendoza and I am the ESL program specialist for Salinas Adult School. And what we do here at Salinas is we do, of course, we're part of the adult ed program. But aside from that, we are in the generation changing business. And what we mean by that is, for example, a little bit about my parents. My mom never went to school. My dad only went into second grade. But thanks to an adult education in LA, actually, that sent these technical degrees to Mexico, my dad was able to, with his second grade degree, was able to acquire an adult a technical degree that then led him to open his own business in Oaxaca, which is where I'm from. And so therefore he was able to open his own business and support his 5 children. Then NAFTA happened and of course devalued the Mexican peso. So we migrated to the US where my mom, even though she was not allowed to go to school when she was a child, she didn't have access. She was able to find the adult school in Madera where she not only took English classes, but learned to read and write in English and also computer skills and other things that also help them to open their business here in the States. And so therefore, how we see ourselves at Salinas Adult School and at Salinas Valley Adult Education Consortium is that we are in the generation changing business, because thanks to that, all from 7 of the 8 children that my parents had, we all have college degrees, bachelor's degrees or higher. I am currently doing my PhD. We have the first attorney in the family, and who actually comes to our school once a month all the way from Fresno to provide free immigration consultations for our students. So how we see ourselves, and again, thank you all for being here with us and for being in the generation changing business with us.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Maritza Correa, and I'm the Adult Basic Education and Adult Secondary Education Program Specialist with the Salinas Adult School. And just like Anna, I have my background education story. My family migrated from Mexico to the U.S. in 1998. And that one picture with the white sweater, that's my first picture in the U.S. So I was an immigrant, an English learner, and I come from a circle of a family that is very hardworking, but not really educated. So I was the first person in both sides of the family to get a college degree. And then after that, everyone else followed. My sister works with law enforcement. My brother is in the military. My daughter is currently a college student. So from a generation of family that taught you that being hardworking was enough, to a generation where we're all getting educated and spreading that around, it's a big thing for us. There was a lot of doors that were closing throughout our path, and then there was a few doors that got open and led me to be where I'm today, where my family is today. So being in the business of opening doors and not closing them, it's very important for us as well.
Thank you, Maritza.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alejandra. I go by Ale. I am the program coordinator for the Salinas Valley Adult Education Consortium. I am a first-generation college student as well. I'm also one of the youngest in my family. We're 8. So I'm the first one to go to college. And for me, it did the opposite, right? Like I went to college and now all of my siblings are starting to explore higher education. So I'm really proud to say that that's been a change in our family. I work primarily with adult students and with helping them go through the process of verifying their foreign education. I also specialize in community college onboarding, community outreach, the foreign degree validation. A little bit about myself. I majored in CSUMB in sociology, and I just want to thank you all for joining us today. We really hope that you find this session worth your time. A little bit about the Salinas Valley Adult Education Consortium. So we have 7 members that represent the consortium. So we have 6 adult schools and 1 community college. These are members listed, but it's pretty small compared to some other consortiums. But our members represent our adults in the community where we're at.
Okay, Maritza. Maritza has some great news for us. Breaking news, fake news.
Not yet. That was yours, Anna. Sorry.
Mhm. Okay, so I'm sorry to inform you of the following changes. So we have fake news. Your college degrees are no longer valid in the U.S. and therefore you are currently unemployed. All the money and years you have invested in your education and to gain the experience that you have gained is no longer valid when seeking employment. The official language is now Spanish, right? So please let that sink in. Really feel the emotion of all those years, all those college experiences that you had, all that work experience that you've had, and all of a sudden it's no longer valid.
So now, go back to the other one.
Mm.
Okay. So everyone had a rough path when you went to college. Like college is not fun for anyone. So if you go back and you think about your experience, my experience was difficult. I was a first generation, never went to college. No one that will guide me at all how to go to college. I was a single mother. I was working 2 jobs. I was going through all the stuff. And I'm pretty sure that you guys can remember what you went through. Either going away from family, having to work 1 job, 2 jobs, being employed at the same time, having kids, or anything that you went through. Imagine hearing that whatever it is that you went through wasn't worth anymore, that you don't have a degree anymore, that you can carry it. So we're going to ask you guys a favor. We want to ask you guys to think about everything that you went through, everything that you worked for, and then have a feeling of what it will be to lose that. And we want you to think of a number from 1 to 8, any number. Like, Anna, what number are you thinking about?
I'm thinking about 3.
What about you, Ale?
I'm thinking 4.
3 and 4. I'm going to do 2. So next slide. Now we can think about the next slide. So, Anna, I'm sorry to inform you that now you're going to be a babysitter. Whatever your degree is, you have a master's in English now. Now you're a babysitter, and you're gonna take care of 3 infants and 2 older children, okay? And they're gonna pay you the minimum, by the way, just letting you know. And then, Ale, you're gonna be a farm worker. You're gonna pick up lettuces. You're gonna harvest lettuces. And I am gonna be working in housekeeping. So whatever it is that you will work for is not valid anymore. Ali's gonna get paid $19. I'm gonna get paid $19, and we're professionals, still making $19 and working long-hour shifts. We have 1 through 4. 1 is a strawberry picker, 2 a lettuce picker, housekeeping, babysitter. Next slide.
And you can also pick from construction,
Construction worker. Go ahead, Anna.
unemployed homemaker, food delivery, and fast food restaurants. It doesn't mean that these jobs are not wonderful in their own way, and they are. We've done many of these jobs. However, unfortunately, we've also worked really hard for our degrees, and that is what we hear from our students when they join us. And this project began because I had an attorney who is also a law professor in Mexico who fell in love and came to the U.S. And then she learned English, and then she said, "Teacher, there has to be a way. They're telling me that I have 2 options: go clean houses or go to the fields." She said, "Teacher, I'm a law professor." She said, I've done conferences in Central and South America, and they're telling me that these are the 2 options. There has to be a way. And before that, we were told by our consortium and everyone involved, they informed us that we just had to send our students to the community college or to the university. But then our students would return and say, we went there, they didn't know how to help us. They said we have to start from scratch. And so therefore for us, with our student Atlantida, when I had her in my office, just distraught about this, what you're feeling now, a little bit of what you're feeling now, which is I worked really hard, and what do you mean I only have these options? When she came to me, I told her her, you know what? We are currently working with a grade coordinator from Salinas Valley Adult Education, Cristian Regalado. Let's start this project. And so I assigned this project to Cristian and to Atlantida. And along the way, of course, we all three of us worked together on it, and so that we could discover this pathway that we're about to share to you. But today we're not just gonna share the pathway. We're gonna give you resources because we don't have a coordinator, right, from the SVAC. Not everyone has the bandwidth to be able to help these students. So today we're gonna be helping you with that. We're going to give you also resources that you can give your students, videos that you can give your students. But before we move on to that, I'm going to now speak in Spanish, and please try to understand what is it that's being said, so that way you can feel that frustration also of the language. Sobre aviso no hay engaño. Lo que sigue. Y vamos a compartir información que descubrimos. No pretendemos ser profesionales o expertos en esta área, nada más estamos guiando a estudiantes. Seguimos aprendiendo y ajustando. El proceso se mueve como se mueve usted. Entonces es como vamos a hacer la presentación para que así ustedes puedan aprender el camino para así poder trabajar en su área. Okay? So I'm sure all of you understood that, right? Okay. So if you want to log in with your QR code into this reflection activity, but also write in the chat box if you would like, instead of using Google Forms. In the chat box, please tell us how you're feeling. Not only when the presentation was changed to Spanish, because I'm sure that you all understood everything, but also how it felt to have that emotion that all those years of hard work, all that all the money that you invested, all those sleepless nights, all that effort that you input, so that way you could gain experience in your field, how that felt. So please put in the chat box, and Alejandra, let me know when you know what people are saying, and that way we can share a little bit of that. How are you feeling?
So that was fast. Someone's commenting. We'll give you guys some time to be able to reflect on that. But it's just a little taste of what our students do truly feel as they walk through the doors of pursuing, you know, what they consider the American dream, right? So it feels horrible, hopeless, overwhelmed. Just learning a whole nother language in itself is frustrating. Let's see. Confused, lost, not quite sure.
Exactly. Yeah, and like Alejandra said, that is what our students feel. That is the frustration that they come to all our offices with, as to there has to be a way. You know, we have surgeons at Salinas Adult School. We have head of surgeries. We have head of hospitals, and they're coming into our country for various reasons, right? And all this knowledge, all this education, and you know, we're not able to really feed it, right? And one of the things also that we've talked about with these students is the fact that, you know, I went to kinder all the way to college here in the States, and the government invested, you know, a pretty good amount of money in my education, right? And then now, of course, I'm working, paying taxes, all these things. But our students, the US government didn't invest any money in them. They gain all these skills and all this knowledge on another country, right? So they're coming in, and now if we help them with this process, we're going to get the tax dollars. We're going to get, so economically, and when it comes to our government, it also benefits our communities. It benefits the student. It benefits everyone, for us to be able to nourish these students into practicing their skills and their expertise. But it's okay. We're back in the US. Your degree is valid now. Your all those years of experience, you still have your jobs. Everything is good and dandy again. You get to go back to your families. Everything is safe, right? So we're going to start our presentation, but we want you to just stay with that feeling, right, about what our students feel. Okay. Sobre aviso no hay engaño, right? And this is just a popular song that in the Mexican culture, right? Which means pretty much means we're giving you all the warnings, all the information, so therefore there's no lie, right? Okay, so next steps. Key insights we've uncovered, right? We're going to share all those with you. We do not claim to be experts in this area. This is on, you know, we're learning as we go as well. We are continuously learning and adapting. The process evolves in response to your needs. So this is, you know, to the needs of the students, and also of our colleagues and in this generation changing business that we are in. Okay.
Okay, and so what we were doing as we were serving these students, one of our members had a poll across all of the consortium that we serve. And initially it started at one of our adult schools. After that poll, we realized that it was actually something that was across all of our members. So then it became a consortium project. As we began to build what it meant to serve these students, we found that in order for a student to begin this process, they really do have to determine the purpose behind it. So some students could be doing it for immigration purposes, for access to higher education. Maybe they want to continue their education. Maybe they only completed their high school and they want to continue community college here, right? Or a trade. Employment pathways, maybe they just want to verify their degree so they can start working in that trade, in that industry, whether they're lawyers, teachers, or engineers. Qualification recognition. Some students just want to see what's equivalent to what they studied over here, right? So it could be personal. So these are primarily the reasons why students are doing it. And I think for them to understand the reason behind it, it'll allow them to begin the process more comfortably, because it helps them understand, like, this is what I need because ideally this is my goal. So they understand they're writing down their goal, right? They're manifesting what it is that they're trying to achieve, and determining that and having that conversation with them is very crucial before we even begin the process.
Thank you. Yes, and actually the survey, our director said, just I'm sure that there's not a lot of need. Just collect 20. If we get 20 people interested, we might be able to help them. In the first week, we got over 100, just here in our in our county, in Monterey County, and so therefore the need is there, and it's huge.
Okay. Yeah, before I begin, I do want to thank everyone who commented on the chat as well. And yes, this is what we see with the students. Everyone feels lost, hopeless, confused, and we feel for them as well. It's not just them coming in, and we feel for them. It's something that it's so transparent and so devastating that it just hurts us as an institution that so much talent is being wasted. I think it's very important that we distinguish between the high school diploma and the actual degree validation. Some students get confused. Despite the outcome of whatever happens with the validation, some scholarships or most of the financial aid does require a U.S. high school diploma. And some employers are still confused when the validation comes and it says it validates a high school diploma and also a bachelor's degree, but they still require the high set GED or the high school diploma. So we do try to still encourage our students to either take a GED or a high set, which if the English level is low, it might help them move with the process of getting the GED or the high set, because you can take it in Spanish. But we also offer the high school diploma path if they already have some credits from their country. So next slide. This is actually very popular with our students. As they're going through the validation process, we use the same transcripts that they use with the validation process. We translate them, and practically we give them U.S. credits for the classes they took outside. And we just let them know these are how many classes you have left. You can practice your English, and you can also gain the skills while you're also waiting for your validation and gain a high school diploma in the U.S. as well, which will open the door not only for jobs, but also for financial aid. So some financial aids do not accept the validation. They do need the U.S. GED, high school equivalency, or the high school diploma. And this is something that we just try to guide our students depending on what is it that they need. We had a student that she was a teacher in her country, and she wanted to do this path because she actually wanted to become knowledgeable of the subjects in English here in the U.S. while she was doing her validation. And she's currently working in a school as well, working with middle school children. And she feels like she has the vocabulary because she actually went through the subjects while she was doing the high school diploma. I just wanted to mention that because we want to separate the validation of the high school diploma versus the validation of the entire degree or career that they got in their country.
There's a question in the chat. If this is WES, it's not WES, but we'll talk a little bit more about the agencies.
Yeah, and this is actually something that our high school diploma HSC, ABE, ASC program specialist does, which is Maritza, right? She's the expert in this area. So it's actually our school that does the high school validation, and within the process that Maritza just explained.
So as we begin to serve the students after they've decided on their purpose, we have them navigate NACES, which is an organization that has certain agencies that have been approved nationally, nationally, right? Where their evaluations are basically accredited, right? Like they're legit, in other words. Um, out of and the reason I use NACES, I know that there's a lot of services. I know that there's a lot of people that are capable of doing this independently. I rather have them go through NACES because if they end up deciding to go to community college, depending on or higher education, depending on the college or that institution's requirements, some of them only work with certain agencies. So if say Jose is telling me, oh, well, I want to go to CSUMB because I want to major in this, but I'm starting right at the adult school, then I would want him to go through NACES because CSUMB really is only it usually only works with one of the agencies in there, which is ECE. So we're familiar with that. So I want him to go ahead and go through this process, begin it, but go through ECE so that once he gets to that point where he's going into the university, then when he started his evaluation of his degree, then he used the correct agency. We don't want them to continue to keep paying for this service. And we want them to save money because it is a little bit expensive depending on what their goal is. So these are organizations that are approved nationally, and I would recommend that you take the time to navigate this link because depending on where you're at, depending on the institutions and even the employers, they might recognize certain agencies that work in different parts of the nation. So this is the number one spot that we navigate through before we actually start creating accounts and whatnot. Any questions on this part? Does anybody know about NACES or are you familiar with any of the organizations in there? I do see a question on the chat. It says, are you doing your own translations? What about validation? Depending on the agency, you can do your own translation. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we present an example. But it just depends. Like, for example, if I know that Jose wants to go into CSUMB, right, and he's going to take that path, because I know that that institution that's local to us only accepts ECE, then I know that ECE that they also only accept certain types of translations by the ATA organization, then I'm going to advise for that student to go through that process. So as you help these students, it's very important that you try to understand what the employers are familiar with, what the institutions are familiar with, what your local community college is familiar with, so that you can best guide them through the agencies. At the end of the day, they make the final decision as to what best fits their situation.
There's a
And
comment in the chat box about if you can explain what the ECE and ATE is.
Yeah, so ECE is one of the agencies that is under NACES. What is it called? It's like WES. ECE.
And also keep in mind that these professionals are different than our general population, right? What we have encountered with these students is that they are very resourceful, and so therefore, even with Atlanti, that we said, okay, we had that conversation about what is your goal, and then she said, well, I want to work in education. I don't want to go and pass the bar again here in the States. And so therefore, what we did is we said, okay, well then we need to if you can contact the agency that you want to work for and figure out if They accept, the accreditation agency that you have picked, and she did all that. So she did all the groundwork. She did. So just keep in mind that when we say, for you, for us, is mainly guiding the student, right? But the student pretty much does everything because they know how everything works when it comes to their country, right? When it comes to collecting their documents, and also they're really resourceful. So they go in and they make the phone calls and they do what they need to do in order to find out what these agencies that are aligned with their goals need, or what agency they want them to select. So just keep that in mind too, that many of this is being carried on by the student themselves.
Yes, yes, that is
I,
correct. So
I, if
ECE is a credential agency. It's one of the agencies approved by NACES. And then ATA is the American Translation Association. So that one is approved for all of the NACES organizations as a service where if somebody's registered under that service and that person, that individual can provide a translation service to that student, and they can search it by their location.
I want to make a comment on the translation. The document that I shared on the other slide was a translation for the high school diploma for our own school district. So within our school district, if someone attests that they're certified to translate, they can translate, and we can just give you credit for the classes. So fortunately, I'm very knowledgeable of the Spanish language, so I can translate Spanish. But if they bring any transcripts from a different language, we do request for them to be translated. Now, this is for the high school diploma just in our district. The validation of the career requires a professional level of translation, which is separate and a different process.
Thank you for clarifying that, Marta. Okay. So the recommended evaluation topics and documents. So again, the student needs to, we need to have that conversation with the student as to why they need to do this, right? So if it's only to, to find employment or for immigration purposes, a general evaluation is fine. So, so the general evaluation pretty much compares your education to the US system and typically used for employment or immigration, right? If the student wants something, maybe wants to continue their education through the community college or the university, then it would be a course by course evaluation, including a detailed breakdown of courses, credits, grades, and typically used for, of course, college credits. What are the documents the students need? And we're going to share documents in the future and after in a few slides of handouts that you can give your students. So that way they have all this information, right? Gather the necessary documents, of course, the official university documents, such as the transcripts. And we encourage our students to request 2 or 3 official copies. We also, just because, in case today they need it for their immigration purposes, but maybe tomorrow they would, or next year they will need it for, to continue their studies, right? So we ask that they request 2 or 3 official copies. Original degree or diploma, a photocopy may be acceptable depending on the company that they select. Professional credential, if applicable, it is recommended to collect as much as many original documentation as possible from their specific university. And if students do not have the original, they can contact their universities to request replacement copies. And so therefore, those are the documents that we encourage. And of course, we'll talk a little bit more about the translation and the agencies that are available for our students, especially if they're from Mexico, that are translation services that are free, and others that are low cost. So we'll share that information in the following slides. Okay, Alejandra.
So as far as the document translation, like we mentioned earlier, search up NACES. If an organization is nearby or is something that serves your region, I would search your community colleges to see what they usually use. I'm seeing some comments that your state does something completely different, which is fine. But this is why, again, you have that conversation with the student to see what is their goal, right? So if the student has documents that are not in English, we have the students navigate the ATA translation. Some of the agencies have their own service for translation and they're ATA certified. They just pay an additional fee for that. Other agencies don't have this service because they're so small. So then the student will submit the translated documents. So every agency is different. The translation does have to be word for word. It should be in the same format as the document, so it shouldn't be distorting the format. There are, like I said, some agencies that offer the service. Some might not need a actual certification, but then again, you start this process and then you apply for a job somewhere where they're like, well, who translated this, or where's the certification for this? And it was you who translated it, or you used chat for it. You don't have that certification, right? So I think if they're gonna do it, might as well get it done certified so that you don't have to turn back and redo it again. Initially, yeah, you can save a few bucks, but then if you pay for it now, then you're saving yourself some time and some heartache later in the future as they go through the process.
Exactly. And we encourage students to also reach out to their consulate. For example, the Mexican consulate, they have Ayuda al Migrante, which is help to the migrants that are here in the States, and they provide the free translation services. And it does have that, that stamp from the Mexican consulate, right? So it's valid. So therefore, we encourage our students to do that. Other students, they have paid all the way to over $1,000 for these translations. Other students have reached out to their peritos at their universities, which is pretty much the person that is the expert in translating documents at their university, and they do the translation for a low cost. We have had students pay 800 pesos, right? Which is a little bit of a few dollars, and so then it gets the certification from the university. So we encourage students to reach out to the university to see if there's someone available that can from their in a language department, in the linguistics department, that is certified and can do these translations for for a low cost, or they can also reach out to their consulate and see if there's any support there when it comes to the translation of documents, which from what I hear, most consulates do have, and it's a free service. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, let me just, technical difficulties at the moment.
The little arrows on the inside.
Yeah, my computer is going a little bit crazy, but if we can continue while we
We can look at the chat right now. There's a few questions. It says, what options are available for refugee students who might not be able to get documents, like transcripts from their countries? In most cases, they're fleeing from their countries for various reasons.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a tough one.
Those are the kind of things that we're figuring as we go through. Go ahead, Ale.
So I've had two students. One was a student who was a refugee, cannot get any documentation. She was from Pakistan, actually. So we know that situation, right? The political, everything that's going on. I talked to her about the process, what this would look like if she could get the documentation. If for some reason, for some miracle, it gets sent to her, right? But I think that's where you have that hard conversation of like, you know what? Because of the situation that you're in, you're probably going to have to start all over until things get better. Either you end up getting your documentation or you start at the adult school, and maybe you can't practice in what you studied, but that's just the situation they're in. That's actually one of the toughest conversations we've had to have. But then I've had another student who was here as a refugee with a visa, and I believe she was able to get some government services. And through the service, through CalWorks, they were able to help her fund her starting the process of revalidating her degree. I actually had the county office reaching out to me like, where do we send this money out to? Like, who do we pay to help her? And I was like, whoa, like we're not charging, we're just serving the student. So there is that support, there is that help, depending again, that conversation that you have with the student. And she was ideally helped to be able to fund basically a scholarship to be able to pay for her translation. And she's a nurse, so she's working on that, and hopefully she gets to practice here in the United States during the time she gets to be with us. So it just depends. It's a tough conversation, but giving them options that this is not the end of it, right? If you can revalidate your degree, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to be a successful person right here. What are your options? Okay, this is what you majored in, this is what you studied, this is what we have here to offer you. And we have those deeper conversations with them. Marita, were you going to add something?
And just it's always a lot of research. whether the government, the country that the person is fleeing from, do they have a consulate here in the U.S.? Are there any organizations helping these students communicate with their governments? Are the schools open to us contacting them? Because we have actually contact foreign schools to ask questions about courses or things that we need information of. So it can be on a case by case, depending where they're from, whether there's a consulate available to help them, whether there's a facilitation of us contacting the schools and maybe figuring something out with them. We have seen students that are able to give permission to a family member for the family member to retrieve the documents and mailing them out to them. So I think it's worth just doing a little research and figuring out if there's a path that we might be able to help them get those documents.
Exactly. And like we said, these students are really resourceful. So, for example, Atlantida, she reached out to the Mexican consulate, and she was the one that discovered that there was a, this person available that was providing these services for free. And of course, we had another student who reached out to her university, and then we discovered that there were professionals within these universities, in of course in Mexico, where they provide this service at a low cost. So, students are really resourceful. So, highly encourage you to kind of just guide them, and they are able to navigate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to answer a few questions. So we are helping the students prepare the documentation to provide it to the agency. The students are doing all the legwork. They're finding their documentation. We help with, okay, well, say they're on one of the agency websites and, the agency website is in English. It didn't translate in their language. So then we'll help them, like, this is what the agency that you've selected is asking you for. If we go back to the other slide, Anna, you can see, this is actually one of my students. So she has her bachelor's in El Salvador, but her translated documentation that she provided, she actually used DCE. She translated it on her own. One of her friends from church is a certified translator. So he helped her. So you can see how they talk to each other, they connect within their community. So he translated it for her. And then they submitted a rough draft to the agency, and then the agency repopulated the information in a cleaner format. But this is what we mean where it has to stay in the same format. It just has to be translated. So as you can see, they take screenshots of like the official signatures of pictures, and we'll help them with like scanning documents if that's what the agency allows, so that they can receive the official translated information. So if we go next, again, like we said, the students do all the legwork. We just guide them and clarify certain things. We're not experts. We'll go through the website, we look at the instructions, and we follow those guidelines. And then through that, we learn how to better serve a student the next time they come around to us, as they begin to send their documentation. So when they submit their documentation, they're sending originals. So that is something very nerve-wracking. That at that situation, and we're starting to run low on time. At that situation, it's nerve-wracking, right? Because we're talking about they're taking out of their frame their official and their only documentation, right? Their degree, their diploma, and they have to mail that out. Depending on, again, where they study. Like, for example, students in Mexico receive a cédula, which is like they get registered with their country, and it's a public website where these agencies can check if they're in that system, in that registered system, and they count just a copy of their cédula, of their registration, and then they just navigate that website and verify that this person is real, right? So it depends, again, where they studied and what they will be providing. They will so they can send their documents, but do not send them. We don't recommend that they send them with like a prepaid. Like, you send your documents, but don't send it with like another envelope so that they can send it back to you. They have their own way of processing documents, and they'll send it to you as you pay your fees. So all students receive a reference number, a tracking number. If you order online, you're kind of familiar with that. So that's how I talk to the students. Like, you order something online, you check it, you go in there, you check the status, when is it coming, right? Or when is it getting there? So paying for a tracking number, it's a few extra bucks, but it just kind of helps him with that stress of like, did my documents get there? And again, every agency has a different fee. So if the student is on a tight budget, I have them go through all the websites, look at all your options, and come to your own conclusion. And I also talk to them about how you don't have to make this expense all at once. Start with your translation. Maybe in the holidays you have a little bit more money, then actually pay for the evaluation, because then they just feel like, oh wow, I need all this money to do this now. I can't do this. So taking baby steps is also just fine.
Exactly. Important notes. So only remember that only the student can request their academic records, right? We don't do that for them. Evaluation agencies are private and not affiliated with our staff, and we let the students know. We cannot guarantee the outcome of any evaluation, right? Students are notified directly if additional documents are needed, and they're notified directly by these agencies where that they have selected based on their goals. We are not experts, but we continue learning and improving, and we collect student experiences to better understand the process. And we've had really great feedback from our students who have gone through the process and who have gained employment. For example, one of the students, really tracked me down, and she's like, teacher, I really need to share with you my process so that you can tell other students and other professionals and other agencies what my experience was. She was working in a packing house, right? Packing lettuce and packing vegetables. And she heard about our services. She came to Alejandra. Alejandra helped her through the process. And then now she's, because she was a scientist in her country in agriculture, she was then hired as a scientist here in the US after validating her degree. And so therefore she's the one that shared with us the fact that her university charges very little to do the translations. She informed us of like the agency that she picked. So all these things. So it's really, really great for students to come back and say, oh yeah, I was able to, I called the ag company and I said, I am, this is my degree. What agency do you recommend that I use to validate my degree? And then the HR department told them, oh, okay, we recommend this agency. And she went through the process, and she's now, making the big bucks. So we always recommend our students to, like I said, they do their own work, work when it comes to the research, a lot of the research. Okay. So
Anna, can I add something to that slide? I'm realizing I should have added another bullet point, but I had limited space. So thank you all of you that are online. One thing I want to mention, and this is very important, as they go through this process, the language barrier is going to be also number one, right? So they can go through this process, they can be eligible for work and all that, but interviews are probably going to be in English. They're going to experience still everything in English either way, right? Like I speak English, but when I work with my student, estoy hablando en español. So when I talk to them, I tell them that. So as they go through this process, we always recommend for the student to still sign up at their local adult school, because even if their goal is to go to a community college or go to a university, across the nation, we have different requirements for what is considered to be free tuition, and in different versions of AB 540. So it's very important that when you have that discussion with the student in regards to AB 540, that you discuss with them what that means. Like, yeah, you got your degree evaluated, but if you want to continue to go to school, and if it's less than a bachelor's and you're going to apply for financial aid, you still have to have that time completion, right? So it's either the 240 hours per year, or it could be whatever accumulates to the time required for AB 540 where you're at. So if that is the goal of the student, making sure that their time is something that they're aware of. And it can be in the combination of taking a non-credit community college class or a credit community college class in conjunction with what they're completing at their local adult school, so that the time accumulates to the 3 years of education in the United States. So that's one thing that's very important. So continue to have them sign up for their English class, have them sign up at your adult school, so that they continue to learn to address that language barrier, and they can be a little bit more comfortable as you prepare them for interviews, as they transition onto community college. So it's just something to think about, depending on where you're at and what that means for your student and how you're serving them.
Exactly. And there are several programs also that can support students. For example, at Salinas Adult School, we purchase Engine that is that helps our students to learn the skills that they need. For example, we have nurses who are trying to validate their degree, so therefore they do all the modules that have to do with their specific career, so that way they can learn the technical language, right? And so there's other programs, Burlington English, Ellie, that are available for our students, also to help them support them while they attend our classes, of course. Okay, so key reminders: evaluation costs range from $100 to $600 depending on the agency and services. Choose the evaluation type based on your career and education goals. Some jobs require state exams or credentials, usually in English. Immigration status can affect job and education options, and not all employers are familiar with foreign degree evaluations. That's why we encourage our students to call the company that they want to work for and talk to HR and ask them which agencies are the ones that you are accepting. For example, the attorney that was working, that was one of our students, that was a law professor, she wanted to work for her now community college. And so therefore she called the HR department and said, hey, which agency do you accept? And they told her, she also wanted to apply for at our district. So she did the same. And therefore that's how she was selected, the agency that she picked, right? Immigration status can affect job and education options. And so we do offer also free immigration consultations from an attorney that comes and volunteers for our students, because it is an important thing to touch on. Not all employers are familiar with foreign degrees evaluation, so therefore sometimes our students do have to educate these agencies, and of course they call us, they contact us, and we support them as well. Certified translations may be more affordable abroad. So for example, in Mexico, like I said, the university of this specific student, they charged her 800 pesos, right, for 3 pages. And of course, it has the seal from the universities. Agencies will notify you if more documents are needed. Now, the reason why we also said you in these presentations is because we would like for you to still share this presentation with your students, right? So that they know, remember right now your degree might not count, right? Because we're playing pretend at the moment. And of course, we have been very blessed to have met other experts that are also doing the same work that we are doing, and we are collaborating with them. For example, through Facebook, actually, through a post that I posted as part of our adult school, we got in contact with Elena, who is actually in Illinois, and she's been doing this for years, and we were not aware, right? So the wheel has always existed. Sometimes I think that it just feels like a very well-kept secret, right? And so we're trying to, share the knowledge so that way we can help as many students as possible. But Elena is a great resource too. She holds monthly meetings for students so that they can join and can learn this process. And of course, our amazing Alejandra also holds monthly meetings as well for any students to log in online and for them to be able to learn this process as well. So we have great experts that are helping us with this. The student, for example, the Universidad Autónoma de Querétaro, this specific student, the one that's now a scientist at this ag company, she shared this information, and Guillermo agreed for us to share his contact information, and he does translations also, for anyone that requests the translation and is part of the university. So just different resources that you can share with your students. Maritza.
Yes, and the thing with the students is that they come with a mix of barriers, a mix of things. It's not just validating the careers. We have to help them evaluate their entire life. Do they need English? Do they need what kind of assistance do they need? So one of the main biggest needs that they have is assistance with immigration, because they came with the U.S. They're probably dealing with some type of immigration process. Some students don't really have an immigration status, and they don't know if they can have one. So we've been working with attorney Armida Mendoza, aka Loki, Anna's sister, the first generational lawyer in the family. And she's been willing to come to our schools in the whole district, run the whole consortium, and she gives 25 free consultations to students. So students come and ask, do I have a path? Can I get some assistance? And then from then on, she might help with the process, or she might make a referral. But to the least, they get this orientation without having to pay this much amount of money. And even if you have to pay, it's a very low cost with her. And that's one of the main barriers, because most lawyers do charge a lot of money, and some students do not have that much money. Getting someone evaluating their immigration status and the immigration process, it's a huge help.
Mhm.
Do you want to add anything, Anna?
Yeah, we have had students that have paid all the way to $400, to get a consultation. So when we told them that this was free, they were like, "Oh my God, yes!" And then laws changed, so we encourage students to always kind of, just get a check in, just to make sure that everything is maybe things change and now they do qualify, right? So and of course the attorney is providing services across the country. She has over 15 years of experience working in with immigration, in the immigration field, and she charges $100 for a consultation for students that cannot come to the free consultation clinic. And so therefore, it's really cheap, especially when students charge, when students have been charged all the way to $400 for a consultation. And so we do share her information just because she is providing services across the country. And that way students who maybe don't have the money to be able to pay $400 for a consultation, they can pay $100 with the attorney. And of course, she cares about our community because she comes from our community. And so therefore students have been very great to her. We also have special projects. So we have a student who, Marichu, she went through the process. She actually has a master's degree, and she ran an adult education program in Mexico. And so she, because of current, several situations, she came to the U.S. And here when she went through the process, she noticed that a lot of other students had a lot of questions. And then when we did these presentations, she also noticed that there were students that we could not support because they don't live in Monterey County, right? They live in Illinois, they live in Minnesota, and we cannot provide support to everyone in the country, right? And so therefore she said, maybe I can open my own business in this and then help support these students. And so she has actually opened her business. It has all the licenses and everything that it needs for her to help these students. And of course, she's been also being guided by Alejandra. We're working closely with her to support her, and also for her to be able to help all these students across the country to go through the process. So her fees, of course, are low because she's, she wants to help other fellow professionals, and because, her passion is in helping adult education just like we are, but she is currently in the US. And so therefore she's going through the process, or she actually already went through the process. She has all her degrees validated now, but she would like to also help support other students. So here's her contact info if you want to share that with your students, and that way they can reach out to her and see if that's something that they would like to find support in, if they cannot find support locally. Other special projects that we have, because we do know that students, they validated their degrees. Now what? Right? They need the skills, the technical language in order for them to be able to practice. And so therefore we have courses that here in California we call IET, but I'm sure you have them as well in your state, which is similar to CET. And so therefore we have English for paralegals, and we have several attorneys attending that these classes. And this class specifically is being guided also by Attorney Mendoza, who is helping our instructor, who was a paralegal for over 8 years, to teach this course. The instructor that is teaching this course, for example, she holds an adult ed credential and also a CET credential because of her prior experience. And so therefore they're co-teaching this course, or rather supporting each other in this course, so that way they can help attorneys from other countries, right, that maybe want to be paralegals here in the States, right? So that would maybe in the future they can take the bar exam and become attorneys, or whatever their path is. If they love the law, we have these courses available. We also have ESL for health careers, so students that were doctors. We have in that class, we have surgeons, we have surgical nurses, we have head of hospitals, we have, and of course, our regular population as well that are interested in ESL for health careers, and they again, learn all these skills. And of course, these students also have access to Engine and to other programs to be able to also continue their studies. English for office technologies, we also have that for students that need the certifications here in the States, right? That need to learn the skills as well. So it's also providing them with the guidance, but also the access to courses. We also have, as part of SVAEC, we have several statewide, and of course, everyone is more than welcome to join our statewide presentations here. For example, the 30th of January, we did Know Your Rights, right? With the current situation, the attorney gave a Know Your Rights presentation that was very insightful, and also from the point of view of an attorney, which was an interesting take. Also, the February 27, we did validating degrees, of course, for students and for staff. So therefore, we do 1 hour in Spanish and then the second hour in English, and that way, when students join, they're able to learn this process that we just shared with you. March 20th, we did opening your business with and without social security number. And of course, we did on April 24th, we're going to have citizenship mock interview with USCIS, who's going to join us, as well as the UW Foundation and the immigration attorney who is going to talk about citizenship, right? And so therefore, anyone is welcome to join us. I always share the recordings because the goal here is to get the information out there. So therefore, this QR code is for that, for the recordings. And we encourage everyone to attend, and that way we can help spread the word about these topics. And these topics, of course, were brought to us by the SVAC Student Council. We can try to guess what our students need, but it's beautiful to have a student council that lets us know what they need and therefore guide our planning, and that way we can be more student-centered. We also have a QR code for students and for anyone to register, so that way when we have any presentation available, we send automatic emails to everyone that is interested in this specific topic, and that way they can join us. For students that come to your agencies and they're like, well, and of course we know that not everyone has the bandwidth to support these students, so you feel free to join these resources with them, and that way they can join us at the presentation. We do them in Spanish and English, and that way they can learn the process and they can get all the information that they need. So do feel free to share this information with your students, and because we understand that you are busy and that you can do a million things aside from everything that you already do. So feel free to have them reach out to us. Here's my email address, right, that is available to everyone, and then that way they can join us and learn the process as well. We do have some handouts that you can also print and give them out to your students. And that way, pretty much giving a summary of what we have talked about, right? And that way they can kind of start reading on it, learning what the process is through a document. And then of course they can watch the recorded presentations, or they can, have other documents too. Here's the QR code to this presentation. And the beautiful thing about this presentation is that it continuously changes. So every time that we get new information from students, or new information that we think it's important, we add it. So it's a living document. And so therefore, we encourage you to share it with your students. This one is the English version, but please do reach out to us so that we can share the Spanish version with you. And then that way, students can then see the presentation, see the slides, see the handout, watch the videos, right? And everything is there, just letting them know. And then this beautiful document that was created by Alejandra, I'm going to let her talk about this.
So this is a result of us not having enough bandwidth. We had to create something to give to them, because one thing it was to meet with them, and then they would still leave empty-handed, like, okay, what did she say? What were the steps? So this is your QR code to these 2 live documents. So you'll find in there that it's in Spanish and in English. Please take the time to scan it, save these documents. You can recreate it, make it your own, change my contact information down there, and put yourself in there as you serve these students. Basically, it's, it's step by step as to what they would be taking in order to begin this process, if they're going to do it on their own, or if they can't find you available at the office. And it's, determine your purpose. We talked about that. Choose your preferred agency. We talked about exploring NACEs. There is an agency on there. You'll see it added on my list, and that's custom to the students that we serve. One of the agencies that we ended up working with saw our presentations, saw what we were working on. I believe her name is Yolanda. And she's like, hey, let me create a landing page so that your adult students can get a discount. So then we added that, right? Because she took the initiative. We were already, serving the students. So if you end up connecting with someone at some agency that's close to you and they want to do that, you can customize this document, make it your own, and continue to update the steps. If it's something different in your state, right? Selecting the method of evaluation, required documentation, translation, customize it to your students' needs. And please feel free to share this document for students as they begin this process.
Exactly. We want to make it as easy as possible for you and your students, for them to learn the process through recordings, through handouts, through checklists, through, as much through meetings, right? Monthly meetings that Alejandra and that are Illinois Edna hosts, and that way students can join us, right? Maybe Alejandra can't support every student, right? She focuses on Monterey County and also in California, but definitely presentations are there for her to answer questions for these students. So feel free to reach out to us. Feel free to share this information with your students directly, and of course modify it. The hope here is for this not to be a secret anymore. For this wheel to that has been invented, has been invented for a long time, for everyone to know about it. So we want to thank you for being in the generation changing business, and let's open the questions. We have a few minutes, 10 minutes exactly, to answer questions. And that way you can reach out to us. I will put the link to the slide again, to this presentation, the QR code, and that way you can have access to all the resources that we just shared, and that way you can also share the link and share it with your students. We also post a lot on our social media platforms. Welcome to Salinas Adult School, and that way students can also log in and be able to see the online presentations that we offer, that are open to everyone in the country, and of course all the great resources as well. Any questions? You want to? No questions? I think we did an amazing job then. Okay, so we hope that this presentation was helpful to you, and that you walk out of this presentation with a lot of good resources for your students, and that way they're able to gain knowledge and gain the skills that they need in order for them to continue with this process. So awesome.
Thank you everyone for your comments in the chat box.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we have 10 minutes, so we'll stay here for any additional questions that you may have. And then that way, but we are super jealous that you are over there in Texas enjoying, the beautiful state of Texas. We are here in California. We couldn't make it this time, but hopefully next year we'll be able to be there in person.
The documents that we're sharing have the name of a few agencies. So if you go into the documents, you should be able to see the list of the agencies that we were talking about.
Yes, under the NACES slide, if you click on that link, actually it should take you to their website. And their website has a list of members. There should be, last I checked, 18 members that were approved nationally. Yes, we woke up early.
Yes, we had the presentation in the morning here. So yeah. So
and they wanted to see the contact information again.
Oh, okay, perfect, of course. So here's the website, right? You can click on the link when you go to the presentation, and then that way you can is to be able to do that. So our contact information is a little bit all over the place, but let me share a little bit of Alejandra's.
I'll put mine in the chat.
Oh, there you go. And then let me share Maritza's. If you are looking at, you were looking for, here's Alejandra's, if you want to take a quick screenshot. And then of course, I will share Maritza's as well. And then that way, if you want any support when it comes to HSC, ABE, ASC, which is validating the high school diploma, this is Maritza's contact information as well. And then of course, my contact information, you will find it in the, I would like for you to share actually this one with your students
first.
Just because it has the information of my information, but also because it has There you go. It has my contact information, my email address, and of course, it has a QR code to register so that the students can continue receiving any updates or any invitations to different presentations that we are holding here in California or in Illinois. Awesome. Okay, we were a little bit afraid that we're going to run out of time, but we're glad that we didn't, that we have enough time. Okay. Well, seeing no more questions, I do want to know what everyone is typing, so I'm going to go into the chat.
Can you go to the QR code for the presentation?
You can okay. Let me see if I can remove this. Oh, let me see for the presentation. Okay.
I think it's more forward.
Move forward, you're right. Yeah, our schools are actually closed at the moment, so we are at home doing our presentations. So we have a little bit of technical difficulties. Here you are. Let me just remove that. There you go. This is the QR code for this presentation, and now you have access to all the resources available. And feel free to share, this presentation with all your students. Like I said, currently this one is in English, but do contact us so that we can share the Spanish version, so that way you can share with your students. And of course, don't forget that there's also recorded videos for your students to have access to, and that way they can join us and can find out, can hear from us about the different pathways that we have developed, and that way they can guide themselves. And like I said, these students are amazing. They learn English at a really fast rate. They do, they're very independent, they're very resourceful, and they're really, really quite great, especially once you hear all these stories from their experience working in the field. Like I love speaking to the doctors and the surgeons and the nurses and the attorneys, and they have so much knowledge and so much experience. So it's a beautiful thing to be able to support them, especially with the shortage of doctors that we currently have in the country, right? And shortage of all these professionals. So it's a great investment for us to support them, so that way we can support more people within our communities, but also so that way we can help their families and also help ourselves, help our country. So it's really great. It's a win-win. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone.